today we are playing buy, sell, hold, and avoid. Got some great players to talk about, or maybe some not so great players. Let's see where we're at. Nate, why don't you kick it off? A running back, really?
I know a running back for me that I want to buy. Doesn't come around very often, but tonight I want to talk about Jonathon Brooks. Okay. And we haven't talked much about Jonathon Brooks because, as many of you know, he's on the pup. He's not played so far this year. He can't play next week either. He will be eligible after week 4 to come off the physically unable to perform list. And then you might have a league winner in your hands if you have Jonathon Brooks when he comes off the PUP. So I was taking a look at Chuba Hubbard, who just had a great week this past week against the Raiders. Andy Dalton comes into that Carolina Panthers offense, and it's a totally different offense. And, I was one out there saying Bryce Young, maybe he wasn't set up for success, but that was pretty damning. Andy Dalton coming out first drive, driving down the field for a touchdown, and then putting up 30-plus points for that team. Not a good look for Bryce Young, unfortunately. I don't know where we go from here with him, but Chuba Hubbard against the Raiders did have 21 carries for 114 yards, 5 receptions for 55 yards, and a touchdown. All right, that was 27.9 fantasy points on the week. That was obviously an RB1 finish. Overall, top 12 finish there. Chuba looking great against the Raiders. And this gets me excited about Jonathon Brooks, who is the incoming RB1 for this team. Chuba is the guy that's been there for the past couple of years. He's been decent, but he hasn't been anything incredible. So to get those numbers, is this the offense and the workload that we can expect with Jonathon Brooks when he gets here? Because if it is, I'm excited about Jonathon Brooks more than I have been anytime in the last couple of months, and I was already pretty excited about him. I don't think he's going to step in week 5 and put up these kind of numbers right away, but certainly by week 10, week 12, he's going to be up and running. And if this offense, they don't have to be a top 5 offense. They just have to be an average offense. And Jonathon Brooks can put up some really good numbers for you, especially when no one's really talking about him right now because he's still injured. I don't foresee that playing much into the rest of the season with him because many people thought he was going to be ready by week 1. They put him on the PUP. They're not, let's be honest, they're not playing for a Super Bowl this year, so they could give him some time to come back from that injury and be good to go. And let's be honest, Chuba Hubbard's not even been that great so far throughout his career. He's been below 4 yards per carry, but this year, 5.2 yards per carry so far this year.
Okay.
So if Jonathon Brooks can come in and do some of the similar stuff, I'd be pretty excited about that. Current cost for Jonathon Brooks, who I didn't mention earlier, currently RB14 on keep trade cuts. So he's not out of the public's eye completely, that's for sure. You do have to pay a little bit for him. Some deals I would like to make: J.K. Dobbins in the second for Jonathon Brooks, James Conner in a third for Jonathon Brooks, or another running back just straight up, Jordan Mason, because, hey, who knows when CMC's coming back? He's off in Germany checking his Achilles out. So that seems a little concerning to me. If it's a straightforward injury, you don't have to go to Germany.
When Jonathon Brooks becomes healthy, opens a nice little buy low window on Chuba Hubbard, who, look, he's a free agent. Jonathon Brooks is the future in Carolina. I think Chuba's going to make himself a little bit of money this offseason, kind of like Zach Moss. Dallas Cowboys, the aforementioned Dallas Cowboys, they're looking for help in the running game. Chuba Hubbard might actually be a really good fit there. I don't think he's going to break the bank. They need to do something. They re-signed Dak. They re-signed CeeDee Lamb. Why not add another piece to that offense? All right, so Nate buying a running back, something that he does not do very often. Let's get to someone that I'm selling. I'm selling with a caveat here, okay? It's not that I hate the player. I hate the situation he's in. And, look, wins, points, these are things that are important right now. It's a guy pushing 30 years old, so we're going to try to get younger. We're going to try to kind of give our offenses a little bit of a boost here. I'm selling Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. I hate to do it, but over the last 2 games, 6 catches, 64 yards. I don't see help on the horizon anytime soon. Tua, there's been talks of retirement, not from him, but from people. Yeah. And Skylar Thompson got hurt last week as well. So we're down to quarterback 3, but I still don't, until I see it, don't want any Miami Dolphins pass catchers right now. I think the only one I really want from that offense is Devon Achane. So can I upgrade? By upgrade, I mean someone who has the potential to be more consistent this season and possibly long-term. Got a couple trades put together here that I saw. So we have Tyreek Hill for Garrett Wilson, 25 first and a 25 second. So if you could get Garrett Wilson and 2 pretty good picks, I would do it. And then you could take those picks and turn it into something else if you're looking to contend this season. What do we got here? Tyreek Hill and a 25 third for Nico Collins and a 4th, a 25 4th. What do you think about that one, Nate?
I like that one. I like
Yeah,
that one a lot. I love me some Nico.
me too. Here's a good one too. Tyreek Hill. This one almost feels like an overpay, but given the current situation, it might not. Tyreek Hill in a second for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I think that's also fair. You get a top wide receiver getting younger. Every single one of these, you're getting younger, and you're still having similar production, at least going forward. Because I know Hill's been absolutely insane the past couple of years, but situation's not great right now, and he is getting older. So I love all these trades.
Yeah. It's one of those things too where you hate to tell people move off a player if they're not doing anything after a few weeks, but you also can't be complacent.
Hmm.
So you do have to at least consider making moves if you want to better your team. Nate, what do you have for us next?
Yeah, this next player I'm looking to sell. And I will say, to preface this isn't the most popular player in the world, but did have a good week 3. And some people might be wondering, hey, what am I going to do with this player? Well, I'm looking to sell Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney, current wide receiver 58 on Keep Trade Cut. So obviously, not breaking the bank for him right now. But he did have 8 receptions for 66 yards. And people are wondering, okay, what does that mean for Darnell Mooney going forward? Because Drake London had 67 yards, so they were pretty close. He only had 6 receptions. He did have a touchdown. So outside of the touchdown, pretty similar production. So is Darnell Mooney maybe a bigger part of this offense than we originally thought? Also had more receptions than Kyle Pitts. Mooney was a large part of that game plan against the Chiefs. Is it going to stay? I'm here to tell you, no, it's not. Darnell
Okay.
Mooney is not a large part of this offense. He was a large part of a game plan specific to the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are one of the top blitzing defenses in the league. Steve Spagnuolo, he loves to blitz. He is more than happy to blitz every single quarterback every chance he gets. And because of that, the Falcons need to get the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands quick because as we've seen so far through the first couple weeks of the season, Kirk Cousins has basically zero pocket mobility. Kirk Cousins looks like what I thought Aaron Rodgers was going to look like, but Aaron Rodgers is out there just running around like he has no problems at all. So I don't know if Kirk's going to be better maybe in 6, 7, 8 weeks, but right now he does not move around the pocket very well. So they had to get the ball out of his hands. So Darnell Mooney was the main benefactor of that plan. Currently has 11.6 career average ADOT. In that game against the Chiefs, 2.8. It was a bunch of screens, bunch of passes around the line of scrimmage. That's what they were getting Darnell Mooney involved with. He was creating yards after the catch, just trying to get the ball, out of the pocket to a receiver, make something happen. That's what was happening with Darnell Mooney. It was not a large part of this offense going forward. Drake London, Kyle Pitts still the number 1 and 2 there in a low passing volume offense anyway. So don't go out there. Don't go and buy Darnell Mooney. He's currently my avoid. If you have him, I would love to sell him right now. Don't fall for the hype on Darnell Mooney if you were. Not many of you probably are, but just making sure that we're not falling for the Darnell Mooney hype. If you could sell him for a 3rd round pick, I would do that, to be quite honest. If you could sell him for a second, I did see him go for a second a couple times today on Dynasty Daddy after the performance over the weekend. So I would definitely try to move him for a second. A 3rd and a thrown player would be amazing. Just a 3rd round pick I'm fine with. But Mike, listen to some of these players that I saw get traded for Darnell Mooney. Christian Kirk and Bucky Irving. I would have either one of those players hands down over Darnell Mooney. Christian Kirk, come on. I know he's had a bad start to the year, but he's been a great wide receiver for many years now. And Bucky Irving, I think we might be talking about him a little bit later because he's looking pretty good for the Tampa Bay Bucks right now.
I started Christian Kirk in the league, got me 15.9 points this past week. So give me that. He's going to be more consistent over the year than Darnell Mooney will. And they said about Bucky Irving that he's going to be earning more snaps going forward. And I like that. And I think he's been really good. Don't know if you get him. I don't know what the start's going to be like. They do play the Eagles this weekend. And all of a sudden, the Eagles figured out how to tackle and play run defense. So maybe that's not the best time to start him, but you never know. Sometimes the Eagles have problems with backup running backs. It's just one of those weird things. Now it's my turn to buy, and I also have to eat some crow because I'm buying Los Angeles Chargers running back J.K. Dobbins. Nate, the Gus bus is as efficient as a SEPTA bus right now. You want to hear the stats?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I already know them because I have so much Gus across my leagues.
I do
But
too.
go ahead and tell me, Mike.
But
Go ahead
for
and tell
those
me.
of you who don't know, Gus Edwards has 32 rushes for 94 yards and 0 touchdown and a whopping 1 reception for 2 yards and no touchdowns. J.K. Dobbins, on the other hand, 42 catches, 310 yards. I'm sorry, 42 rushes, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 catches, 14 yards, 0 touchdowns. Now, look, the Chargers, they may need to lean on the run. Justin Herbert re-aggravated his ankle injury. He's on my sell list pretty soon, too, if he doesn't step it up. He's currently running back 11 on the season, Nate. He's a good running back to have if you have players like Jonathan Taylor, Ramondre Stevenson, and Najee Harris, 3 guys that are all underperforming right now. J.K. Dobbins could definitely be a spark for your offense. And check out what you could get him for. Deontay Johnson, although I don't know, Deontay looked a little bit better with Andy Dalton there.
Yeah.
It was a trade that I saw in Fantasy Calc. Rashid Shaheed, who, by the way, Shaheed putting together a nice career as a UDFA, a 25-second, or Cooper Kupp. Right now, Cooper Kupp is not going to get you as many points as J.K. Dobbins. We're at the season. So, it's right now you got to go with who's consistently performing. I know he's got injury concerns, but he looks pretty damn good from everything I've seen. I will say this, if Gus Edwards does not step it up in any capacity, probably going to see some Kamani Vidal pretty soon to spell JK.
Yeah.
What could it hurt?
Possibly.
Right?
I think Gus still has it.
I don't know what's going on.
We're not seeing it.
I don't get it.
I mean, that's just not even 3 yards per carry. That's just under 3 yards per carry.
Yeah. Nate, what do you have for us next?
I'm selling a running back, Mike. I bought one. I have to sell one. It's the law of the universe. I am selling Rachaad White for reasons we kind of just hit on. Rachaad White currently 99 overall on Keep Trade Cut, RB25. So he has dropped a pretty good bit. And here are the stats from this past week when the Bucs did not play very well. But still, both these guys were pretty involved. Rachaad White, 6 for 17 on the ground and 3 for 14 through the air. So 2.8 yards per carry, Mike.
Yuck.
Not great. Meanwhile, Bucky Irving, 9 carries for 70 yards at 7.8 yards per carry. That's 5 more yards per carry than Rachaad White had. And 5 receptions for 18 yards. So more receptions, much better yards per carry. Obviously, many more yards than Rachaad White. And what we're seeing, unfortunately, is a change in this backfield. And I've always been a pretty big Rachaad White fan for fantasy football purposes because he scored a lot of points. He scored a lot of fantasy points. But the thing with Rachaad White has always been Rachaad White is a volume play. Over the last 2 years, there's not been many running backs who have gotten as much volume as Rachaad White, especially through the air. And we talk about it all the time. Running backs who catch the ball score more fantasy points than those who don't most of the time. I mean, let's say Derrick Henry, and you just find the end zone all the time. So those receiving running backs, they're very valuable. And then, White never had great efficiency. I believe his yards per carry career average is in the 3s, somewhere like 3.6. He's never been a very efficient running back, but just the volume was always great for fantasy football. Well, now Bucky Irving is there, and Bucky Irving so far has been efficient. And even if he wasn't efficient, he's getting more touches. And I have this quote from Todd Bowles you kind of hit on earlier. Todd Bowles, head coach, said, "We were behind. We threw it a bit more. Rachaad's probably a better pass protector at this point, but Bucky has definitely earned more reps." And Bucky already had 14 opportunities this past game to Rachaad White's 9. So I don't think Bucky is all of a sudden going to be the RB1 back there, but we might be looking at a legitimate timeshare, a legitimate committee here. And that really takes away a lot of the appeal of Rachaad White being a volume play. So with that, I'm looking to move off of Rachaad White, who is currently the RB32. Bucky Irving, only the RB35 in the season, just behind White. He might finish ahead of White by the end of the season, especially if they're keeping up this kind of pace. Now, Bucky Irving, after his performance, is up to RB27 on Keep Trade Cut, so he's not a cheap throw-in player anymore. You do have to pay a little bit, but first, we got to get rid of Rachaad White. Rachaad White, if I can get a first-round pick for him, I would be ecstatic. You might still be able to get that. It's early in the season. He is a starting running back. He was valued at a first-round pick before. You might still be able to get that. I don't know, though. You're probably going to have to give him something back. Rachaad White in a third for a first-round pick, maybe. I would love that deal. I don't want to throw a second in there to get a first. Maybe a throw-in player. But if we're looking at players we can move Rachaad White for, I like going after a tight end. Tight ends are pretty devalued right now with how they started the season. Can I go after a TJ Hawkinson on someone's IR? Can I go after a Jake Ferguson, a Mark Andrews? Two guys that have kind of underperformed. Ferguson mostly due to injury. He's been pretty good when he's been out on the field. So going after a tight end with Rachaad White, I think is a good deal. And if we're going after a wide receiver, we can go after guys like Michael Pittman Jr., who's been underperforming, Stephon Diggs, who's a little bit older but scoring lots of points for you, Terry McLaurin, and Deontay Johnson, two kind of veteran receivers that are starting to point up. So those are some of my targets I would like to move Rachaad White for. And I have a couple shares of Rachaad White, so I am looking to move him this week.
Let's talk about someone I'm holding, but he's on the bench until further notice, Nate. And that's Baltimore Ravens tight end Mark Andrews. The fact is, Isaiah Likely's got him doubled up. Twice as many targets, 16-8. He's got 12 receptions. Mark Andrews has 6, 141 yards. Mark Andrews has 65, and he has 1 touchdown. Andrews has 0. And yes, that's not double either, but you can't double 0 because 2 zeros is just 0. So he's 1 more touchdown. We can't sell the guy. You're going to lose your shirt selling him right now. We have to hold and wait until he comes up a little bit, does anything. And then if you want to move on because you're worried, like maybe Isaiah Likely's taking this starting tight end job in Baltimore, then you can. He is 29. Is this when we want to move on from Mark Andrews? Unfortunately, right now, the best action is just bench. And it's a shame, too. I think the talent's there. We all liked Isaiah Likely, but we didn't see it being something like this. But like you said, the Baltimore Ravens are not playing Baltimore Ravens football right now. Give it to Derrick Henry, throw it to Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson, what are you doing?
I know. So if I may pass on my my knowledge as a Ravens fan,
Please
explain the situation a little bit for those who are still listening to the podcast. So Mark Andrews obviously didn't do a lot this past week against the Cowboys. I believe he only ran 1 route, which is really unfortunate. Maybe it was 4 routes. I don't know. It was a really low number. And what happened is they had Charlie Kolar out there a lot. So they had Charlie Kolar and Isaiah Likely in their 12 personnel. So when they put 2 tight ends out there, they weren't putting Mark Andrews out there that often. And the idea was that they were going very heavy blocking. They had a lot of times where they had 7, 8 guys on the line of scrimmage, and they were just giving the ball to Derrick Henry. They went into this game with an obvious plan to give the ball to Derrick Henry and run the ball. It worked out. I mean, Derrick Henry ran for like 150 yards, and they ended up winning. But they did not have the game plan to throw to Mark Andrews. So that gives me some kind of hope that, it wasn't just like he didn't exist and they threw the ball for 350 yards. This was part of the game plan. It does concern me that it was part of the game plan, though, because you're taking away one of your best players. Now, Mike, and once again, I'm going to say it's going to get better. I don't know about the whole season. I'm hopeful it's going to get better the whole season. But I do have some good confidence that next week they're playing the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are one of the top teams in the NFL at kind of making the other offense focus to throwing over the middle of the field. They don't allow a lot of receptions outside the numbers. They're, I believe it's called like a slot tunnel is how I saw someone describe it on Twitter, where a lot of the production against the Bills is coming out of the slot, coming across the middle of the field. This is the opportunity. If we're going to get Mark Andrews back, if Isaiah Likely is going to continue his production, this game against the Bills is going to be their opportunity. So I think we'll know a lot about the tight end situation after this Bills game. If it goes badly for Andrews again, we might have to start panicking.